Can you play the clip of him walking into the court? 25-second clip. Can you just show this? Just look at his mannerisms. Look at his eyes.
President Trump, will you come speak to us? President Trump?
Oh, my God.
They just play this clip on loop.
Let me just tell you. If he is who...
Oh, there's our friend Jason Miller over there.
Get from, what's it, Getter? What was it called?
Yeah, Getter.
If you...
He's right there with Trump, huh?
If you think
Miller
about how he's wired, okay, which is coming after you, do you know what this guy is thinking right now? Think about what he's thinking right now. They publicly humiliate. Let me tell you, like, for me, okay, you may beat this guy. He's got 5 kids. He's got grandkids. This bloodline of Trump is not going away. They just effed up for 80 years is what they just messed up with. Not 10 years, not 20 years, 80 years. For 80 years, you're going to have to hear this last name. 80 years. And there's only one strategy you can use to prevent that name from coming up left and right. And you know what that strategy is. Some try to do that with Kennedy, okay, with that strategy. But this one's not going to go away for a minute because Trump is more like Joseph Kennedy than he's like John F. Kennedy. I don't know if you know the difference, Tom. You know, obviously Joseph Kennedy was the guy that you feared, vengeance, I'm coming after you, I'm going to come, versus John F. Kennedy was the guy that never wanted to be a president. He was the younger brother with the back problems, and he had health issues, and his older brother, who was a pilot, who was supposed to be the one that was supposed to be the president, and he was the guy that the day his older son died, Joseph Kennedy went into depression for a few years, and then all of a sudden, the younger son is like, I'm going to come, and then boom, John F. Kennedy, and then RFK, and then boom. The difference here is the father, Joseph Kennedy, equals Trump.
Exactly.
And Trump is the president.
To show you how tough it was, skip everything you've heard about Kennedy conspiracies. There were statements that were made by the mob that said, I don't know who did it. I don't know how it got pulled off, talking about the Kennedy assassination. But I'll tell you, I understand it strategically. Because if you had taken out, because one of the benefits was that Bobby Kennedy was no longer Attorney General shortly thereafter. And Bobby Kennedy was prosecuting a ton of organized crime. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And the thinking was, if you were worried about Bobby Kennedy and you were worried about how Kennedy had basically was a mobster, had 2 sons in the White House prosecuting the rest of the mob, and if you believe that, the thinking was, why don't you take out Bobby Kennedy? And he said, no, don't do that. Why? Because it still leaves Joe Kennedy with his son as president, and they would have flipped this country upside down. And I believe that when I read that assessment, I think that's the right assessment they made. That if Bobby was really the target, why don't you just kill the Attorney General? Send a message to the family. No, don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah. Well, obviously, we're speculating. We're just repeating history, guys. We're not saying anything here. I don't want anybody to jump to conclusion. All
but
we're
this
saying
is what the mob said. If that was a strategy, that they identified with that because they were scared of Joe.
But here's the thing with this. You know, I talked to a guy who just had a conversation with Trump earlier today, okay? Won't give the name. He says, we had a call, and we had to talk 14 different issues together. And he's been a friend of his for a long time. And this is not Giuliani, by the way. He's been a friend of his for a long time. And he said, it's wild how this guy at this age can compartmentalize 14 different issues. He says in a 26-minute conversation, we talked about 14 different issues, and he was sharp on every single one of them while he's dealing with this. So what are we going to do with, we're going to do this, call this guy. What are we going to do with it? He's like, he is so flippin' sharp. Meaning, do you trying to tire this guy out? He's not there yet. Okay, this is a guy that may be living into his 90s, okay, the way he is, right? Perfect, no problem. But Tom, there is a different, maybe it's different with the kid. I woke up when somebody called out my dad. I'm just a party guy. You embarrass my dad, game over. For the rest of your life, you're going to have to deal with me, right? Those 5 kids and the grandkids are watching this saying, you did that to my papa? You did that to my dad? No problem. You're going to have to deal with me for decades. So again, you win the battle, but this type of an event, first time in the history of America that you're doing this, you're humiliating the last name. You may have just woke up a giant and it isn't who you think it is.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.